Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan Roth, the Motor City Madmouth, and I have my two North Carolina boys in the house. Well, as close enough in the house as we can get. Rick Curti out in Charlotte. What's going on, Mr. Curti?
Hey guys, how are you?
And David Hodges in Gastonia.
Scott, Rick, how you doing tonight?
All right, ready to
Doing
talk?
great.
Got a lot of baseball stuff to talk about. We'll keep talking about the great American pastime as long as there's news for us to do it. And what better way to do it than in a big way? And I mean big, As Steve Cohen completes the $2.4 billion purchase of the New York Mets. Some thoughts about Steve Cohen joining the hit parade.
Well, I'm glad it's not J-Lo and A-Rod or A-Fraud, as I like to call them. Can you imagine that circus? They would have their own reality show. So I'm glad that it's a professional businessman, and if he's got the money and wants to spend the money. And, I love to see the Mets be a contender. They've been pretty much of a laughing stock the last 2 or 3 years. Hopefully, they've been called the New York Mess instead of the Mets because it's been a mess there with them. So hopefully Mr. Cohen can bring to relevancy, spend some money, get some key free agents, and make them a good team. So I feel very confident that Mr. Cohen will do a great job as an owner.
Dave?
Yeah, I definitely agree with this one. Like Rick said, with Alex Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez, it'd be kind of like a Hollywood production, East Coast edition. And, it's like the spotlight would be all on them. And, and that's not for business. But yeah, I agree. Also what Rick said, you got a businessman in there. Hopefully he can right the ship and, they can, turn around, turn past seasons around. Obviously, they've, kind of been the laughing stock over the past few years. And, and it's a very storied franchise, and it's not what you want to see out of a storied franchise. Obviously any franchise new, 50 years old, 100 years old, they're always going to be, down years. But, Mets fans should be happy about this one, that they have him, as the new owner of the team. And they should be more than optimistic for the future.
Well, rather than it's in is J-Lo, then what you're looking at is a first-class freak show. I understand you have Broadway in the Big Apple, but you don't need a freak show, especially on the Diamond, since it has been a very tough situation. Well, there's no question Steve Cohen's going to do a really good job, and he didn't waste any time making changes as GM Brody Van Wagenen was gone after 2 years, and along with him, Omar Minaya went with him and a few other people. So you talk about an immediate footprint. Brody Van Wagenen is wagging his tail someplace else because he's no longer working at Citi Field, is he?
He sure isn't. Yeah, wherever he goes, that's an interesting name. So wherever he goes, I wish him the best. But usually that's what happens with new ownerships. They might give him a year, maybe 2, and then they'll just clean house. That's what Tepper did here with the Panthers. He just cleaned house, and Panthers actually not too bad, and but that's what owners do is, and he didn't waste any time. So I think that's a good thing. He wants to get his own personnel in there.
Well, Sandy Alderson being there doesn't hurt either. And Brody Van Wagenen was wagging his tail, getting under everybody else's skin. So evidently Steve Cohen must have saw he was obviously a knowledgeable Mets fan, and he didn't want Brody Van wagging my tail, disrupting my new business venture. So, Sandy Alderson isn't a bad person to get going, and that they're going to surround themselves with some pretty good people right away.
It should be interesting. It'll be interesting. So, we'll see what he does, and but I think he's off to a good start. He just put his own people in there, and it's just like I said, it's just hopefully he'll make the Mets relevant again. I hope so, because I remember the '86 Mets. I remember them with Darryl Strawberry and Howard Johnson, and they were a great team. They were a powerhouse. I enjoyed watching them, and it's just sad how bad they deteriorated over the last couple of years. And hopefully they'll they'll be relevant again, and we'll see what happens.
So, Dave, you wanted to say something about Brody Van wagging my tail, wagging? I'm not taking a page out of Chris Berman by using some nickname. So, go ahead, David.
Yeah, it's that's what it's going to kind of send a shiver through the spine of anybody, or any number of people in certain corporations, which will always face a regime change. So hopefully a lot of the front office had their resumes updated, and when they saw the sale was going to be going through, kind of maybe started looking elsewhere. And I'm sure Cohen, he had his eyes on the Mets for quite some time, and must have seen obviously some things he didn't like, or was I don't know if it's possible in baseball circles, but for prospective new owners, if they can kind of get some feedback, maybe have a source with the team. But yeah, it's and of course, like you said, Omar Minaya going as well. Who's been a very influential figure in baseball, over the past call it 5 to 10 years. But they'll wind up elsewhere, and maybe not the roles they had, or maybe something possibly a little bit less. But yeah, it's like y'all said, Cohen, he was wanting to come in and just put his stamp on the team, saying, okay, I'll keep you on for a year or two. This group over here, thank you for your service. We're moving forward. But yeah, hopefully once the sale went through, all those boys had their resumes updated.
Yeah, this isn't a typical transaction. It really is not. When you think about it, Steve Cohen knew exactly what state the Mets were in, not only financially, but as a fan. So he knew exactly what he needed to do, who he had to get rid of, or the average owner may need, like you say, Rick, 1 or 2 years to figure it out. He already knew what he was going to do. It was a matter of getting the approval through Major League Baseball. Once I own it, and I really, really, really own it, okay? We'll get back to the Mets situation later in the broadcast. So we'll go from the East Coast to the West Coast, where Justin Turner won't be punished for his World Series celebration. Rob Manfred is taking the high road on this. I actually have to admit, I'm glad Turner won't be punished, because he did deserve to celebrate with his teammates. I understand the risks that were involved, but winning a World Series isn't something that happens overnight. And Rob Manfred admitted there might have been certain protocols that MLB should have instituted. So, he's looking the other way, indicating that Turner did show remorse about the situation. So what's your take on this, David?
Well, it's kind of intriguing, so, there are a lot of other players, during the season, if they violated protocol, obviously, there were consequences. Obviously, I believe it was Clevenger for the Indians. A bunch of them went out that night in Chicago. Don't believe anyone contracted COVID-19, but still, they put themselves at risk. Obviously, that led to Clevenger being traded to San Diego. But celebrating a World Series championship. Yeah, Manfred, like you said, Manfred looking the other way on this one, and hopefully no other Dodgers caught it from the celebration, and I'm okay with it. It's like you said, it doesn't happen overnight, doesn't happen every day, but but some might kind of scowl at Manfred for not enforcing it right there, but what's done is done, and Turner, he's such a linchpin for that squad, and so hopefully he gets over it, and hopefully he didn't spread it to any of his other teammates or coaches.
Rick?
Well, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and I'm not very happy with it. Okay, because again, Manfred let someone off the hook again. Apparently, Turner was warned not to do that, not to go out there, and he refused. I know you're winning the World Series, and I know you want to be out there, but we have this epidemic going around that's gotten worse and worse and worse, unfortunately. And it was sad to see a lot of the Dodgers out there celebrating with no masks on, and they've actually had some Dodgers test positive for it now. So
right.
that's it's spreading, and that's what makes me kind of frustrated with Manfred. That again, he didn't punish anybody. And he just like, well, it's a world. It doesn't matter. You could have celebrated, and I totally get it. You want to go out there and celebrate, but what's going on right now, Again, people not wearing masks, people not social distancing, people hugging each other and getting close. It was just inevitable for Dodgers to start testing positive for it. And Turner was warned not to go out there and do it, but he went out there anyway. And for Manfred not to punish him and not to fine him. I mean, look what happened to John Gruden and the Raiders. They got absolutely trounced. They got a $500,000 fine. They got some draft picks taken away because the Raiders have been warned repeatedly to follow protocol. They have not, and I'm glad that they got punished. Hopefully that will be a wake-up call for them. But I'm kind of disappointed that nothing happened to them, and I just hope the Dodgers will be safe, because that's all. It's all about safety. So I'm not really happy with the decision, and I like Turner, but that was just very to me just not a good idea what he did.
Well, to preface what you just said, Rick, now that you brought it up, Dodger organization has up to 9 positive COVID-19 tests. So unfortunately, where, everything dates back to what you said, do what you're supposed to do. You get this virus. It doesn't care who you are, what rank you are, president or no president. COVID-19 will get you. So the Dodgers number is up to 9 positive COVID-19 tests. Now, again, I would give Turner a pass on the celebration. First of all, there are no games to suspend him, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, true. Or he could have gotten fined or something, or suspended him for next season.
But, Rob Manfred knows that he's just fortunate that they were able to get the season in and that they crowned a champion. So, again, everything when it comes to COVID-19, throw it out the window. It doesn't make any difference. You have to adjust every case on an individual basis. And, Rick, we talked about this on Thursday with Mel Farr about not predicting games because they were canceled. So go figure on Sports Exchange. So, but yeah, up-to-date numbers, Dodgers organization up to 9 positive COVID-19 tests. All right, so let's stay in Los Angeles. In LA Angels phenom Shohei Ohtani is expecting to return to two-way duties in time for spring training. The Angels have been trying this experiment for a while, and I hope that Ohtani can do it. But what are your thoughts about the two-way player, Hodges?
Well, you're definitely going to be increasing his workload. Obviously, he came in with such, fanfare and everything. And, as someone that's a memorabilia collector, I've seen, across all forms of, social media, people just clamoring for, this guy's autograph, or just, something, signed by this guy, game worn by this guy. You're definitely going to be putting, like I said, putting the workload on him. And, whether that's going to be, when he goes out on the hill to pitch, if he kind of gets the Steven Strasburg treatment, are you going to limit his, his number of pitches, the number of innings he's going to throw, not to, completely wear him out, because, if, you're going to have him in the field the next day or the day after that. And, I've never been a big fan, of the two-way players. I mean, I know the guys, they love to be out there, whatever sport, in baseball, they don't want to, always be in the dugout, or, in NFL, they don't want to be on the bench. But yeah, it's, you're going to be increasing the guy's workload. So hopefully, hopefully he is ready for it.
Well, he hasn't been able to make it through a season as a two-way player yet. That's not to say that he won't be able to do it, but I'd like to see him pull it off. I remember when Candy and I were over in Tempe a few years ago, and I'll tell you, the mob over at Tempe and the Japanese reporter was unreal with this guy there, so it was just surreal. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, they just had to take it easy with him, and I agree with Dave. I'm not a fan of this whole pitcher, hitter thing. I mean, I just think it's kind of like a novelty thing for now. I think it's just some different, like, ooh, look at this guy. He's like Babe Ruth. He's a great pitcher, and he's also even a better hitter. And and they've been kind of comparing him to like the Babe Ruth of Japan or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. But, just got to take it easy with him. You don't want his arm to go bad and get that Tommy John surgery or anything like that. So you just got to make sure he's okay. And, like I said, I'm just not a fan of these two-way player kind of things. Kind of reminds me of the Wildcat experience in the NFL, where it looked kind of cool at first and like, wow, look at what is this thing? And it caught the Patriots off guard. And then after a while, people adjusted to it. And Pat White was supposed to be was going to be Tim Tebow, and he didn't last very long. And that's what I kind of see with this two-way player kind of thing. I just think it's a kind of a novelty thing and some real cool for the younger fans to see.
Great analogy. I like that comparison, Rick, the Wildcat formation. A lot of people calling it the gimmick. I call it the Wildcat. To me is the equivalent of the run and shoot. Gimmicks go far. Although I do commend Ohtani for doing it. I'd like to see him pull it off. But in this day and age, can he do it? I don't know. It's just, to me, you wonder. But the Angels knew what they were getting, though, when they wanted him bad enough. They agreed to do it. So they're owning up to the fact that they're keeping their commitment to doing it. So more power to the LA Angels. All right, well, as we approach the halfway point of this broadcast, we need to give Rick Curti the opportunity to rant. And since I'm wearing this Detroit Tigers hoodie, folks, okay, there's my head off for a moment. We're going to talk about the return of Alex Cora to the Boston Red Sox. We know that Rick Curti, okay, likes to rant from time to time. So why not bring in Alex Cora and give Rick Curti the opportunity to rant? Go ahead, Rick, take it away.
Well, I mean, we talked about this last week with Hinch. Everybody knows how I feel about Hinch. I think he should be just admonished from baseball for being a big fat cheater and everything. And it's just not a good precedence to show to younger people to say, hey, if you cheat, just sit out a year, you'll come back and you'll make lots and lots of money. So it's not a good thing to do. And then the Red Sox did it even worse by hiring the biggest cheater of them all, Mr. Cora, the guy that, cheated with the Astros and probably cheated with the Red Sox. He played for the Dodgers, so he knew everything about the Dodgers' secrets and everything. And so very, very disappointing for the Red Sox. There's so many other good candidates out there that couldn't gone. I mean, Mike Scioscia's out there unless he doesn't want to manage again or they're just not interested. But why bring this clown back? I mean, what's the point? I mean, the guy's, I don't care if he won 2,000 games in 1 year. I mean, he's a cheater and he should be gone. He should never manage again. And it's just very disappointing that he was just gone for a whole season. And I'm sure he's smiling like, look at me, I got away with it. And I'm going to be making more money. And all I did was sit out a season where it was like we played half the games. And so it's just so bad what the Red Sox have done getting this clown back. So I'm not very happy with it. And I hope the Red Sox go and finish in last place next season. I really do.
So you know what we have to do, David, in respect to Rick Curti? We're not going to talk about it. We're going to give him an opportunity to rant on one subject of broadcast, and we're going to move on. So with that said, Rick Curti's rant. Okay.
Well, another thing is, I think it's a bad idea because, anybody else can come back. I mean, are the Reds going to hire Pete Rose? I mean, is Pete Rose going to be managing the Reds again, or is he going to be managing somewhere else? Or is he going to be placing bets against his team again? So, I mean, might as well bring back Pete Rose. I mean, what's the point, So maybe the Red Sox have a new a sponsorship with some new trash cans they want to endorse, and that's why they brought him back. So it's just bad all around.
I said my piece on AJ Hinch last week. I have no problem with it, but you know what? My opinion is taking a backseat to Rick's rant here, talking about Alex Cora. We move on. MLB, Major League Baseball Players Association, had Tony Clark anticipates 162 game season 2021. We get 162 games. Hodges?
Personally, I think it's still too early to tell. I've seen, as Rick said, cases are surging. I know parts of Europe are on another lockdown. Of course, obviously, Major League Baseball is not playing in Europe, but, it's also surging here in the States. Kind of what I just mentioned, I think it's still a little too early to tell. I mean, obviously, the fans want, a full season. The players want a full season. But my opinion with Tony Clark saying that to me, I believe that's just some wishful thinking right now. I'd love a 162 game season. I'd love to be able to get back out to the ballpark, but I think it's still too early to tell. I know, like I said, we're going to talk the election a little bit later on, but I just, if I had to guess right now, I could see another shortened season. I hate to say it, I don't want to say it, but I personally think that's what it's going to be right now, and and hopefully I'm wrong.
Rick?
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell. We don't know. I think they're more optimistic now that we're getting a new president, and it looks like he's going to take this virus more seriously. He's already gotten a task force, so I think there's some optimism on there that a change of guard may be what's best, and so he's going to say, let's see what happens. But it's too early to tell right now. I kind of my guess, I kind of see another shortened season. I just think that's the best thing to do. You'd rather be safe than be careless, and I think 162 right now is a little bit too much. I think a lot of the people kind of like the shortened season. There's always been one of the reasons a lot of young people are not watching Major League Baseball no more because they think the season's too long. So I think a lot of people like the shortened season. It was kind of interesting. And if this thing doesn't clear up soon, and it's kind of the same, or it's kind of like stagnant right now, I kind of see another short season. But we've been warned. They warned us that during the winter season, this thing was really going to accelerate. And so far, these doctors have everything they've been saying has been truthful. So it's too early to tell. But my guess, I think there'll be another short season.
Yeah, now I do believe at some point, though, there will be a 162 game season. It's not a matter of if and when. It's 2020 when it's going to happen. I don't know. Yeah, I would be myself. I believe a shortened season could be in play. If I were going to anticipate a game total, I would say about 100, maybe 110 games, somewhere in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. But that would be nothing more than just a anticipated guess. But 162 is inevitable. Remember, they have a collective bargaining agreement as well that they have to negotiate. So the last thing baseball needs is to have any kinds of issues with their players, but you also have to take safety first. And then, of course, we'll know what rules or experimental rules that they have that are going to stick versus not stick. I know the extra inning rule with the man on second base is a one and done. Okay, the 3-batter minimum rule is definitely there to stay. I also believe the universal designated hitter, if it's not this year, it'll be next year. And the 7-inning doubleheaders, I don't see them. I mean, that was just because they had to pile in a lot of games. So my best guess would be 100, 110 games, 162 in 2022. But that's what we've got. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, but hey, I hope they could, don't get me wrong. I hope they could pull off that 162 game schedule like Tony Clark's talking about. I really do. I mean, there's a long time to go. Spring training right will be February or March, so we got a few months to play it all out for sure. All right, let's go to the Cleveland Indians. Want the New York Mets involved in a potential trade for shortstop Francisco Lindor. Steve Cohen effect. My goodness, when you join the parade, the Cleveland Indians know full well that if they're going to that if you get Steve Cohen involved, then why not see if they could get a lot in return for a friend, Cisco Lindor. What are your thoughts about this, Dave?
Well, yeah, he's definitely looking to make his first big move. Now that he's in office. Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to have to give up half the farm for him, to Cleveland. If they're going to be able to pull this trade off. Lindor is one of the top players, not just in the American League but in baseball overall right now. Like you said, Cohen, he's in and he's ready to start making moves, and he's obviously got the checkbook to do it. And so like I said, it'll be, if the trade does go through, it'll be interesting to see who they send to Cleveland. Whether it be, a top star, on the Mets right now, or as I mentioned, they'll kind of dip into the farm system and, hand them a lot of top guys they got down there, or, maybe just money. He could just write, Cleveland one big check as part of the trade. But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Obviously, anytime someone gets into power, in pro sports, whether it's a GM position or an owner position, they always want to start, making waves and start letting people know, hey, I'm here and, I'm ready to deal.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt about that. Steve Cohen, when he bought the franchise, he wasn't going to mess around. I think a lot of folks in Queens are looking at Steve Cohen will be like George Steinbrenner, and he'll spend the money and he'll wheel and deal, and who knows what to do with the farm system. I know George Steinbrenner did an incredible job building the farm system up, so he was able to develop players so they can either trade or develop within. So, Rick, what do you think about Francisco Lindor? I wouldn't bother me at all if he leaves our Tigers division to go to the National League, but Lindor, New York Mets, seem right to you, Rick?
That's kind of cool that he wants to do that. He wants to make a big splash. He wants to show people I'm here. I'm going to get this great guy. Honestly, if I was the owner, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't want to give up my draft picks. I wouldn't want to give up anyone in my farm system. I want to build my farm system up. I want to get some draft picks and kind of play out what the season does in the next couple of years. I mean, the Mets are not going to win the World Series anytime soon, and you own the team. You're, a young guy. So, I mean, let's see what happens in a couple of years, but I admire him making a big splash. But if it has to do with getting rid of some players in my minor league system and getting rid of some draft picks, me personally, honestly, I wouldn't do it.
Well, again, I mentioned this earlier in the broadcast, and I'll reiterate what I just said. Sandy Alderson's at the top right with him, so Steve Cohen knew what he had to do when he brought Sandy Alderson in. Sandy Alderson to me is an excellent, and I repeat, excellent baseball guy. So as Sandy says, great idea, Steve, but not quite the way to go. You won't do it. All right. Well, they don't talk politics, but you know what? We're doing it tonight. The Washington Nationals are making their pitch to President-elect Joe Biden to throw out the first ball. Washington hosts the New York Mets. Nationals Park, April 1st. April Fool's Day. I hate to say something about April Fool's Day many years ago, ladies and gentlemen, but I was once divorced on April Fool's Day, and that is no joke. That was reality. How did I make out in the long run? Could not have made out any better with who I have alongside of me. But this is not an April Fool's joke, folks. The Nationals want to go ahead and bring on the president-elect, Joe Biden, to throw out the first ball. So let me give you a little history behind this one first, okay? Biden threw out the first ball in 2009 when the Baltimore Orioles hosted the New York Yankees. And, of course, Donald Trump attended Game 5 of the 2019 World Series at Nationals Park and was booed when introduced versus the Houston Astros. So we're going to talk about this first, and then we're going to talk about the election in general. Who wants to get involved? Who wants to comment first?
I can go first.
I figured you would.
Go ahead, Rick.
Well, like you said about Trump, he was booed out of the building. I think someone actually posted impeach Trump during one of the games. I think they were going to make him. I think I don't know. He lies so much, but I think apparently he was going to throw out the first pitch, but I think he got so much criticism that they eventually said, no, we're not going to do it. Or I think maybe he said he was going to do it, and then the Nationals came out and said, no, we never asked him. So, but with Biden, it makes sense. I think people are kind of, we're divided right now, but I think most part, people we're ready for a change. People are ready for for our country to calm down right now, and and hopefully Biden will be the person. So I'm not surprised. Usually you see presidents do this all the time. George W. Bush did it in 2001, during 9/11, so I remember George Bush Sr. did it, and he threw the ball in the dirt, unfortunately. So, this is something that happens all the time. And, when we had Trump there, it was just, we never had a president like that. So, but this is nothing new. And so we'll see what happens with it.
Okay, David, floor is yours.
Yeah, like Rick said, it's kind of a tradition. Many past presidents have, they've thrown out the first pitches at games, and also, as y'all get, Rick said, we are kind of a divided country right about now. So many people want Trump out of office, and a lot of people want Trump to stay in office. But yeah, I've got no problem with the Nationals, asking President-elect Biden to, come throughout the first pitch. Should fans be allowed in? I think he would get a, probably half or more of the stadium would probably give him a standing ovation. I'm sure, obviously, the Republicans, that would be attending the game, that they would be the boo birds in the stands. But yeah, I've got no problem with it. Do I think, if Trump had won re-election, yeah, I don't think they would have asked him to throw out the pitch. But yeah, I got no problem with it. And of course, Biden's saying he's gonna tackle this bull by the horns, that is COVID-19, or take the bull by the horns and do what he feels is in the best interest to get this disease eradicated here in this country. And I have no problem with it. Would I turn the game on? Of course.
Well, with all due respect, as long as baseball's being played on April 1st, and I said as long as, underline it, quote it, whatever you want to do, why not give President-elect Joe Biden, by then he'll be President Biden, an opportunity to throw it out? Sure, I think you should. You have a fresh start. Unification is certainly something that the United States of America definitely needs. Many of us believe that he did get it. All we have to do is look at social media and see all the different vote counts that have taken the better part of close to a week to really officially tally them up. But why not? Why not?
I agree.
Donald Trump? No, he wouldn't have been given they wouldn't have done it. So, all right. Well, you know what? We rarely ever talk politics, but since we talk about games, I'm going to give Dave Hodges an opportunity to comment on the 2020 election. You happy with the outcome of Joe Biden defeating Donald Trump?
Well, I was surprised. I'll say that. Obviously, right here in Gastonia, Rick, of course, right down the road from you in Charlotte, and Scott, I know you've spent some time here as well. We had a Trump rally here a couple weeks ago, and I believe over 30,000 people attended. And, just, seeing the turnouts that, Trump rallies would bring, I don't want to say it would have been a landslide victory. Again, yeah, I'm surprised, that kind of seemed, that's kind of, I guess the pattern, when it comes to the presidency. Obviously, of course, Trump's Republican. Right before was Obama, Democrat. Before him was Bush, W. Bush, Republican. It's the people will get tired of dealing with one. They'll bring in the other party, then they'll bring the former party back in. It's just back and forth. Kind of a windshield wiper type thing. But of course, I've been talking to some coworkers, and everybody's saying, oh well, so mmany videos are turning up online of all these ballots being burned or thrown out, and there's going this one presidential election is going to have of course it was historic on so many levels, but it's going to probably have the number one or going to come in number one on the counter for conspiracy theories. People will and they'll always be pillars saying, well, I worked there and I told I was telling people to go to the Democrat side, or go to or take a Democratic ballot. Of course, it's all one ballot and all that. But yeah, I was surprised. I firmly believe Trump was going to win. I figured it was going to be close, but as we saw, President-elect Joe Biden, he won a lot of states. I don't think he was projected to win. I know there were at least 2 that were in favor of Trump, but then more ballots were counted, and Biden came back as the winner. And yeah, it's that's definitely a new day for this country, and or when he takes office, and hopefully all the protests and everything will kind of calm down, and people would kind of look at this with a form of optimism.
Okay, Rick, take it away.
Well, I'm not a Trump fan at all. I live in an area where it's very highly Democrat. I know where David lives. It's pretty much Trump town. They love him over there. Here where
You
I
should ride
live,
with me on my package delivery route when I have to go out
yeah.
into the country. There's
Oh
not
yeah.
one house that doesn't have the Trump train flag flying
When I was out
outside.
there to see the stadium, I saw like 3 Trump signs, and I saw the GOP headquarters. And I was in
It's over there.
Gastonia
It's over
not
there at
very
the
long.
mall.
Oh yeah. And in my area, you don't see any Trump signs. You don't see nothing. You see a lot of stickers that impeach him and all this stuff. It's very very Democrat where I live. What am I surprised? I'm more relieved because I didn't want him to get reelected. It's just too much drama, too much chaos. Can never get the story straight with him. I mean, he just lies so much. He just lies all the time. And it was just time for a change. And I know a lot of people who are Republicans actually voted for Biden because they just saw Trump as a threat to their party. They wanted to bring it back, and I was one that I'm a Democrat, and I voted for Biden because it was just time for a change, and it was just time for our country to simmer down. We're just too divided, and hopefully Biden can be that change, and hopefully he can bring us back to normalcy in a lot of countries. We're happy that Biden won, and so am I surprised? No, because I always saw him as a one-term president. I just think it was an experiment. I think people were so tired of the Washington people there all the time. They said this guy's a non-politician. I think that's what attracted people to him. And they said, let's give him a shot. And like a head coach, you hire a head coach, you give him 4 years. And after 4 years, if he doesn't do good, you get rid of him. And apparently after 4 years, the country said, okay, Trump, time to go. It's we're going to put in, you've been replaced, and we're going to put another head coach to manage our country. So I kind of always look at politics like that, like in sports. So I think it was just time for a change, and we'll see what happens with Biden. And I think a lot of people are happy to see that he's really going to hopefully do something with the COVID-19. And it's not going to go away, but get better. And maybe we can not wear masks as much, and maybe we can kind of go out and venture a little bit more to be around a lot of people. But it's going to take time. But I think change is good, and I think it was time for a change.
Yeah, I mean, all I can tell you, to me, communicating to the American public is not done through Twitter, social media. State of the Union addresses work for me. See this gray hair or lack thereof or gray? That's how it usually is done. No social media to communicate. Do it the right way. Number two, an individual that's looking to get rid of the Obama healthcare plan, for me, folks, saved my life. I nearly died when I was diagnosed with diabetes with a 16.9 A1C, stroke territory. Doesn't work. Pre-existing conditions, take it away from individuals that desperately need it. I got a problem. Excuse me. But I have a problem there. The divisiveness of this individual, to me, you can't be confrontational. And obviously he was. When you put things in perspective and separate families and deport them for whatever reason you're doing it, I understand you're trying to get rid of a lot of the illegal immigrants. I get that. I have no problem with that. But there are exceptions to every rule, okay? And you don't want to place other people in danger that don't need to be. I really struggle with that. But I think first and foremost is when you underestimate a pandemic like he did in the nonchalant manner for which it was done, I got a problem with that. And a lot of people, when we look at COVID-19, there isn't a person out there that will listen to this broadcast that has a sick family member that they can't go ahead and see because they're apprehensive about traveling. I've had to deal with that with my mom. I'm planning to go back up there a week from Saturday. God willing, I'll see her alive. Some medical challenges right now. Candy, of course, will be there with me. And I'm not saying that if we had handled this COVID-19 earlier, it would have had any effect. But don't underestimate an enemy, okay, that's out there. Now, I'm not going to sit here and beat up on Donald Trump totally. There were certain good things he did well. Haven't heard a lot about ISIS, and there were a couple things that he had done that I think allowed us to have a little self-respect in other areas. But when I look at the good outweighing the bad, it's safe to say that everybody realizes the change was inevitable, and as a result, Joe Biden will get a crack at it. But I think he'll be a two-term president. I find that hard to believe at the age of 78 that he can do it. But if he gives us 4 stable years, we get on the right track for somebody to take over. I'm okay with that. I guess I'm a little surprised that this election was actually a little closer than it was. I thought if everybody really wanted to make a change here, it would have been a lot more lopsided. The vote totals would have been counted sooner. But I understand extenuating circumstances such as a mail-in vote, early voting, and a lot of intangibles that have allowed this election to take a little bit longer to calculate. But America did speak. Donald Trump, he did the best he could, but I think you just can't act like a dictator with no people skills whatsoever and expect people to tolerate it over a sustained period of time. I struggle with that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's, and, the conversation, like I said, conversations I've had with, some coworkers over the years, and, so many countries are mad. Well, everybody would say, well, he came in as a wealthy man, countries couldn't buy him off, or they couldn't say, okay, well, how much to get this done, how much to get that done, president that didn't take a salary, knowing if, they would, even bring out the checkbook, he would start laughing. And, but yeah, it's having a businessman run a country, some countries on earth it might work, others, obviously, like, the United States, using Rick's analogy, we gave him a chance. He did some good, but, and Scott, as you mentioned, just the bad outweighed the good. And like you said, the American people spoke, and, they're ready for a change.
Well, think about the foreign policy a little bit too, folks out there. You don't know what kind of, a lot of the worldwide population was looking at this. Would we become distant from our allies because of Donald Trump? That's another factor that probably will weigh into it. If you want more depth analysis on that, go to a political show, because we are not that. Now, the state of Florida voted for Donald Trump and won the state. Yet, by the same token, my home state of Michigan voted for Biden. Candy's home state of Wisconsin voted for Biden. Talk about blue-collar industrial states. And I know a lot of other ones ultimately came to the forefront and decided to go with Biden. California, where anything goes, decided to go with Biden, but I'm not sure if down these states.
Yeah.
I'm talking about blue-collar folks, obviously came and voted for Joe Biden. So when you put things in a nutshell, he had 4 years to figure it out. And I think this was a election that would have been winnable for him if his behavior did not get out of control. If he was not divisive, then you got a problem. And he was all over the bottom.
I think what sunk him was the Bob Woodward tapes. I think that was his undoing, when he kept saying that this was a hoax and this is nothing, it's just a flu. And then he's doing these Bob Woodward tapes and he's saying the exact opposite. This is bad. This is like the plague. And that to me was what eventually sunk him. I think it was borderline, but the way he handled it and just him saying the complete opposite in the Bob Woodward tapes about it and kind of dancing around it and not taking responsibility, to me was the nail in the coffin for me.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that one. And, I've only seen parts of it. He did walk off from that interview too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or, from an interview, right prior to the election.
Yeah, 60 Minutes interview. I'm glad you brought that up, David. I watched that whole interview, and I'm going to tell you right now, I had already made my vote earlier in the day, but when I saw the 60 Minutes interview, that it kind of made me reinforce my choice. That was a bad look for him, and
yeah,
it really was.
Pence too. Pence didn't look good at all. He did not answer any questions. All he wanted to talk about was the economy. And even the host says, you know, he never answered not one of my questions. I asked you a question about why did he call Dr. Fauci an idiot? And all you wanted to talk about was the economy and gave me this speech. And, you know, that I think people just want to see transparency, and they had this thing against them, you know, it's, you know, everything was fake news, fake news. Well, it's not fake news if you don't like what you're being told about you. Like if someone watched his podcast and said, "Oh, that Rick Curti guy is awful. I hate him," you know, it would be like me saying, "Fake news, fake news." Well, he just didn't like me. It's not fake news. You just didn't like me. Just because you don't like stories about you doesn't mean it's fake. You don't like them. So I think that's what one of the issues was. It was just too much. It was like Scott said, he tried to be like a dictator, and might work in some little country, but here, not gonna work.
Well, when you put things in perspective, the 60 Minutes interview was a final nail in the coffin as far as I'm concerned. Bear in mind, okay, that was during early voting. Anybody that watched that 60 Minutes interview with Donald Trump, nobody's going to sit here and tell me that didn't sway the election, because I believe it did. But I think COVID-19 sealed his fate. You underestimated a pandemic is what you did, and ultimately ended up having to wear a mask. And so how many people lost their lives? And then you sink Obamacare to go with it, or try.
He contracted the pandemic too.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, him and his wife. You know,
and his son too, and his staff. Ben Carson just got tested positive for it today.
Yeah, you're trying to go ahead and eliminate a health program that worked for a lot of people. You underestimate COVID-19, and you made yourself look very bad on 60 Minutes. Since we are dealing with 108 stitches baseball talk, 3 strikes and you're out, although how many more strikes do we really have with this guy? But want to make sure we button it up with the right baseball analogy, and that's exactly what we did. So we'll see. My only hope is that I wish Joe Biden well as the 46th president of the United States, and I thought this was an opportunity to give you guys an opportunity to express your opinion on it, since you don't get many opportunities on some of the other broadcasts to do it. That's why I wanted it at the end of the show. Okay. Anything else that you guys want to add to the election?
Well, we'll just see what Biden does in the next 4 years, and I feel good that things will improve, hopefully with our country. I think it'll improve with COVID. I think having someone listening to doctors and scientists, and we'll just have to go. Just the hard part is just getting people to wear their masks. That's the part that I just shake my head. I see people all around. I was out all day and saw very little people with masks.
David,
that's gonna be the tough part.
David, any thoughts about the election?
Well, like I said, hopefully this is, or election day, or when it became official that Biden had won the presidency. It's a new day for this country. Obviously, be another new day when he takes the oath of office up there in D.C. and hopefully this country will kind of reunite, for lack of a better term, and people will say, like, once he gets in office and they can see what he does and and what progress he can make, then they would say okay, maybe this guy's not so bad after all. And of course, as Rick said, me being in Trump town over here, it's it's going to be hard, for the people that lived on every word this man said, for them to accept the fact that he is out of office. Of course, we all know Trump. He's gonna fight this till the bitter end. And I told my fiance, I said they're gonna have to drag him out of the White House kicking and screaming, because he will exhaust every possible resource he has to either. Of course, we all saw that on election day. I think he sued the state of Michigan to stop counting votes. When he saw that he was going to lose the state, and and just be a good loser. Admit that you shocked the world 4 years ago. You shocked yourself. That you won the presidency. A lot of people on his staff didn't even want him there, or in the party, I should say. But yeah, I think it's. I mean, it's official. He should just go ahead and concede. It might take an intervention from his own family, saying, look, you shocked the world. You had, it's been, of course, obviously, I won't be in the room if that happens. They say, it's been a good 4 years. Just bow out, try to save face, and just move on to the next phase of life.
Well, I'll say, all I can say on the matter is, number one, he'll reap the benefits of being a former president of the United States, as they all do. But then, more importantly, I'll end this part of the conversation is, Donald Trump, you're fired. All right. With that said, okay, Rick Curti, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
You can contact me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. Our email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB and Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. I'm also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. And I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti, Curti.
And Rick does a great job with us here in the South Florida Tribune, going ahead and promoting a lot of our content, and we are forever grateful for you there. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Dave Davino Hodges, Davino. Gave myself a Brazilian soccer name. Love the beautiful game, and big fan of the Brazilian teams of the past. Also on Twitter at Dave Talks Sports. And you can hit me up on either of those platforms. Let us know if you like the show, what you think of the podcast. And yeah, just like I said, let us know maybe some topics you want us to talk about. And yeah, there's many ways you can get in touch with all of us. Obviously, Rick just stated his, I've stated mine, and Scott will be stating his.
Very good segue, Mr. Hodges. I appreciate that. All right. Well, if you want to follow us, you can do so the following different ways. Twitter at Tribune South. That's at Tribune South. So please follow us there. Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune gets it done. YouTube channels, South Florida Tribune, subscribe for free, and I'll give you 6 reasons why you should. Have Sports Exchange, No Limits, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, Real and the Rare, Fantasy Football, South Florida Tribune Podcast. So 6 great broadcasts on one YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe there. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find the Motor City Monitor there. We do promote a lot of Metro Detroit sports from my hometown, and I also have a business relationship with a company up there. But more importantly, I've been promoting my hometown for a long time. We'll continue to do that. We have our affiliates columns, our contributors' writings, our columnists, as well as our media distribution partners. And most of all, all of our broadcasts are on the South Florida Tribune, as well in their WSAN dropdown. So go ahead and check us out. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Any suggestions, comments, or whatever, feel free to go ahead and send them to us, and we'll be more than happy to announce them on any of our broadcasts. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth. Be more than happy to connect with you. And you never know, it could lead to an appearance on the show. Anything's possible as I look to do a lot of more ambitious things in 2021. If you want to hear the audio version of the broadcast, you can do so at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Want to hear it again? Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. So lots of different ways to go ahead and listen, as well as view the broadcast. We certainly enjoy bringing you coverage of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. David Hodges and Rick Curti will obviously be on different shows, but this is the one that we talk about. And coming up afterwards on the Sports Exchange, Tom Shanahan and George Eichhorn and I get into a conversation talking about Michigan State football. A little preview for the South Florida Tribune podcast tomorrow. Joe Lippman, Ron Renzi, and myself will talk about purchasing big ticket items. Boy, I'll tell you what, folks, we got some awfully good stories there about purchasing big ticket items. So lots of good things to look forward to. I should also point out that the South Florida Tribune is looking to add Western Kentucky University as part of our media distribution list. Why would we bring them on? I'm a firm believer and supporter of all college sports. If they want to promote their athletics and we could do so on a national basis, they're welcome to do it. And we're hoping to solidify a relationship with the Western Kentucky University Hilltoppers as well. But check out all of our media distribution partners. They all have something to bring to the table. So, all right, Rick, why don't you go ahead and give your COVID message, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, for months the doctors said that COVID is going to get a lot worse during the winter times, and they're not joking. A lot of these countries like Germany and France, they were doing very, very well, and unfortunately, they got that second wave, and they had to shut down everything. And here, I don't even think we had our second wave because, to me, we've just been very poor at not wearing masks, not social distancing. It seems like every week there's always some type of club out here in Charlotte getting busted for having too many people, and we just need to get smart about this. I mean, it's getting worse, unfortunately. Just wear masks, wash your hands, social distance, and just use some common sense. I mean, we saw the Notre Dame game. I know it's exciting, but to have all those fans rush out in the field was not good. And I don't even think they should have had all those fans there. I know a lot of people are happy to see Trump gone, and I understand the celebrations. A lot of people were out there celebrating without masks, and that was not good. And so we just need to use common sense, think about not only about your own safety, but everyone else's safety, because this is a time where it's going to get really bad, especially during the cold. This is where this virus gets very, very strong. So just use common sense, wear a mask, and just let's be respectful for one another.
Yeah, the cold thing really makes me a little nervous because, we obviously, I'll be covering the 12 hours of Sebring over the weekend, but then a week but I'll be heading up to Detroit, obviously, at the end of the month. I know it gets colder up there, but you know what? You can't run away from life, and you got to do what you got to do. But with all due respect, President Donald Trump, my advice is bow out gracefully, and congratulations to Joe Biden. We only wish you well and trying to get this country back on the right track. So, meanwhile, on behalf of Rick Curti, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining Rick Curti and David Hodges on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, and we will catch you on the next episode. Good night, everybody. God bless and be safe.
Hi, guys.
Good night.
Good night.